Germany had a weapon during the Second World War. That piece of technology was invincible. But just when Germans thought they had the war, they didn't because of small errors in the Komet. What were they? Watch ahead to find out. The Messerschmitt Me-163 Komet is an aircraft that looked like a child's toy due to its compact design. But don't be fooled by its playful appearance, as the Komet was anything but a mere plaything. In fact, it held the distinction of being the fastest aircraft of World War II and remains the only rocket-powered fighter plane ever deployed in combat. The Komet's cutting-edge technology demanded meticulous handling and extreme caution from its pilots. Unfortunately, its advanced features proved to be a double-edged sword, as the aircraft posed significant risks to its own pilots as much as to the enemy. While crashing or exploding were potential hazards, the Komet held an even more sinister fate for those who flew it, one that you'd never expect. History. During the World War II, the Germans were investigating experimental designs for unpowered aircraft, also known as gliders. At this time, the Germans had already had some experience testing rocket engines. The problem with those was they could only sustain flight for short periods before they burned up all their fuel. So then, why not put a rocket engine in a glider? The pilot will have rocket power at his disposal, and when the fuel runs out, he's piloting a craft that doesn't need power to fly. After numerous prototypes, testing, alterations, variations, and a handful of dead test pilots and crew, the Messerschmitt Me-163 Komet was first deployed in combat operations in 1944. Let's take a look at some of the features that made the Komet so exceptional and so deadly. The tiny aircraft was less than 6 meters in length, 18 feet, and held a single seat. Features. Before taking off, the Messerschmitt Me-163 Komet was equipped with a dolly comprising 2 wheels. Once airborne, the dolly was jettisoned, leaving behind a single skid as the permanent nose gear. Since the Komet operated as an unpowered glider after exhausting its rocket fuel, the skid was better suited for landing. However, it had its share of issues. The skid was secured by an oleo-pneumatic strut, a common mechanism in modern aircraft that absorbs landing shocks. In such a compact aircraft, the proper functioning of this mechanism was crucial. Malfunctions or the pilot inadvertently leaving it in a locked position during descent would result in a rough landing. During the Komet's development, 3 test pilots experienced this and suffered severe spinal damage and skull fractures, requiring hospitalization. The Komet also featured small blades on its nose, giving it a somewhat comical appearance. However, these blades served as a functional purpose as wind turbines. As the aircraft flew, the airflow caused the turbines to spin, generating power for the Komet's onboard equipment. Problems. The Messerschmitt Me-163 Komet's most remarkable feature was its rocket engine, making it the only rocket-powered fighter plane in combat and the fastest aircraft of the war. Test pilot Heini Dittmar set unofficial speed records with the Komet, reaching speeds of 1,130 km per hour, exceeding 1,000 km per hour in a level flight for the first time in history. The Komet. The Messerschmitt Me-163 Komet's fuel supply was limited to only 7.5 minutes of powered flight. The Allies quickly learned to delay engaging the Komet until its fuel ran out. Even without power, the Komet remained fast and agile due to its well-designed glider characteristics. Pilots were impressed with its handling, describing it as impossible to stall or spin. However, the Komet's glider design posed challenges during landing, as even a slight updraft could cause it to rise unexpectedly. Weapons. The Messerschmitt Me-163 Komet faced challenges in hitting slow-moving bombers due to a limited accuracy of its twin cannons. To address this issue, the Komet was equipped with the Sondergrad 500 Jägerfaust, a unique weapon consisting of 10 single-shot 50mm guns mounted on the wings. Controlled by a photocell on top of the aircraft, the guns would automatically fire when an enemy bomber was detected above, with the barrels ejecting downwards to eliminate recoil. The Komet showcased impressive climbing capability, reaching an altitude of 32,000 feet in under 3 minutes. However, this rapid ascent posed challenges for pilots as the gas in their gastrointestinal tract would rapidly expand, causing discomfort and potential pain. Additionally, since the Komet's cockpit was unpressurized, pilots had to undergo altitude chamber training to prepare for operating in the stratosphere without a pressure suit. Human endurance was limited in these extreme conditions, with pilots risking loss of consciousness after only a few minutes. The Messerschmitt's most significant hazard was its highly volatile fuel. The aircraft relied on 2 types of fuel: sea-staff, a mixture of hydrazine hydrate and methanol, and T-staff, concentrated hydrogen peroxide. These fuels had the dangerous property of spontaneously igniting upon contact with each other, requiring extreme caution during handling. To minimize the risk, the Komet had to separate fueling ports for each fuel type, and 2 tankers were involved in the fueling process. The first tanker supplied C-staff and the left area before the second tanker arrived with T-staff. Additionally, the engine and fuel storage compartments were thoroughly washed with water before and after flights. Due to the high volatility of the fuels, fires and explosions were common occurrences, resulting in injuries and fatalities among both pilots and ground crew. Leaking or ruptured fuel lines combined with the frequent rough landings experienced by the Komet exacerbated the danger. As a precautionary measure, pilots attempted to deplete all fuel before attempting to land, reducing the risk of accidents during the landing process. The storage configuration of the fuels added to the peril. Over 1,000 liters of C-staff were stored behind the cockpit's rear wall, while 120 liters of T-staff were located beside the pilot in tanks on both sides of the cockpit. The corrosive nature of the fuels made their storage and handling even more challenging. T-staff could only be stored in aluminum containers, while C-staff required enamel or glass containers, as they would corrode any other materials. Pilots wore special rubberized asbestos suits to protect themselves from the corrosive fuels, although these precautions were not always sufficient. Tragically, accidents involving the Komet and its volatile fuel occurred. One notable incident involved Luftwaffe ace Josef Poes, who was assigned to a test unit for the Messerschmitt Komet in 1943. During takeoff, the dolly was jettisoned prematurely, causing it to strike the aircraft and rupture a T-staff line. As a result, the engine shut down and Poes had to glide into an emergency landing. Onlookers at the airbase witnessed the crash, and when they rushed to assist Poes, they were met with a horrific sight. Poes was drenched in the corrosive T-staff, and his right arm dissolved to nothing, and his other arm and head severely affected. In this devastating situation, Major Wolfgang Spatty, Poe's best friend, ordered non-essential personnel to leave the scene, hoping that Poes had been instantly killed or at least rendered unconscious. Despite its remarkable capabilities, the Messerschmitt May 163 Komet faced numerous issues that hampered its performance during combat deployments. The Komet's combat record showed that it shot down an estimated 9 to 18 Allied bombers, but at a great cost. 10 Komets were lost in return, along with numerous pilots and ground crew members who perished during its development. Its limited deployment and late arrival in the war meant it quickly became ineffective as Germany struggled with supply issues related to its specialized fuel. Only one Allied pilot, Captain Eric Brown of Scotland, ever flew a Komet with its rocket engine engaged, despite being fully aware of the danger and describing the experience as akin to sitting in a tin coffin. Allied occupation. The German ground crew had expressed their concerns and tried to warn him of the risks involved. However, when Brown safely landed the aircraft, they celebrated together with a drink. In his log of the flight, Brown simply noted, "Fantastic." Apart from this unauthorized flight, the Allies never officially tested the Komet under power, deeming it too hazardous. Surviving pilots who had the opportunity to fly the Komet were both impressed by its performance and deeply aware of the inherent dangers it posed. In this sense, the Komet could be seen as the forbidden fruit of its time, with a single encounter proving not only deadly but also excruciatingly dangerous.